Well, with the conclusion of another NFL season leads to us breaking it down every single bit by bit. And I guess with that, let's just go ahead and dive into this. We'll start off with the good, where we have the New York Jets leading us off. A 7-10 team that is on here because they showed promise. This young team looked a quarterback away, which maybe it's Lamar Jackson, maybe it's Tom Brady. It could be any good quarterback hitting the market this year, but they could be a threat next year so long as they can retain everyone that they've had, or a lot of the key pieces that they had this year. They did fall off late, but that was because you had Zach Wilson start falling off a cliff, and then you had the human taco get injured. But they look good. They look in a promising spot. We also got the New York Giants in this category. 9-7-1 was their record this year, and nobody had any expectations for this team other than to maybe be an average team. Well, they blew everyone out of the water by making the playoffs, and not only just making it, but also beating the Minnesota Vikings in the wild card round to have a date with Philly, which is a winnable game for them, which could lead them one game away from a Super Bowl. Just think about that, a team that had no expectations being able to make it like that. But let's just go ahead and move on. Up next, we got the Seattle Seahawks in here, a 9-8 team that somehow made the playoffs 1 year after trading their franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson. Who would have thought that a Pete Carroll team led by Geno Smith, of all people, would be able to make the playoffs? But alas, they proved the doubters wrong and were able to make it. So good luck on them, and they're going to have a bright future if they can resolve the issues that went wrong this season. In this category, we also got the Detroit Lions, a 9-8 team that wasn't really much of a surprise to me, but they did look good. The defense really started pulling together at the end of the season, and this unit just got better and better and better. If they can retain a lot of their key pieces for next season, they will be a danger to anyone that crosses their path next year, and I would expect them to be a playoff team. Up next, let's go ahead and talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, a 9-8 team who somehow managed to win the AFC South crown out from underneath the Tennessee Titans. And they not only made it, but they also beat the Los Angeles Chargers to face the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. Now the road likely ends there for them, but still, being able to make the playoffs and win a game, especially down 27-0, with your quarterback throwing 4 interceptions, is just insane to think about. So the Jaguars in a really bright spot, and they're going to get even better with time. And last but not least in this category, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, a 9-8 team that had a really slow 2-6 start. But then they turned the ship around, going 7-2 to finish the year, which is just incredible. I get it was an easier schedule in the second half, but it still goes to show this team was able to hang around. I mean, they hung around with some of the best teams, got blown out by some teams like the Bills, but then they managed to come back and win 7 of their last 9 games, which is not an easy feat to pull off. Not to mention the defense looked good, apart from the secondary. The offense really started gelling and looking better, especially the last 3-4 weeks of the season, and Kenny Pickett really started coming into his own. This team should be looking at a bright future ahead as long as they can retain them. But before we move on to the bad, I want to pose a question to you guys. What did you guys think of this season? Let me know in the comments below. Who was your Super Bowl favorite? Who was your dark horse contender? Who was your best team? You're good, you're bad, and ugly. Let me know. I want to hear what you guys have to say, and I will get back to every single one of you. And I guess with that, we'll move on to the bad, where we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers leading the way, an 8-9 team that barely made the playoffs under Tom Brady, and then they got blown out by the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card round. Not the way you want to go. Yeah, you're going to see Byron Leftwich potentially get fired. Tom Brady's going to be on his way out. That means you're starting Blaine Gabbert if you don't get a new quarterback. So I would expect a major fire sale. Sell Mike Evans. Sell Chris Godwin. Sell whatever you can for any semblance of value and just go to a full-on rebuild for this team. Also in this category, we got the Green Bay Packers, and they're mostly there because they went 8-9 with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback, and he started getting better chemistry with his receivers late in the season. They started looking better, but they really shouldn't have taken that long to get started, which is my big concern for the Packers. But hopefully next year they can right the ship and make it better. Up next, we got the Tennessee Titans, a 7-10 team that just fell off big time from last year, missing the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. And, Ryan Tannehill's not your guy. And, Derrick Henry's getting washed. So you might want to try to rebuild or something. I don't know, Tennessee. Also in this category, we got the 6-11 Raiders, and this was a team that was fairly easy to place. We had very high expectations for them to be a contender for the playoffs, and they just weren't. They looked ugly. They blew games in hilarious fashion to the viewer, but it just was not a good season for the Raiders. Hopefully they can turn things around. They're going to try to get Tom Brady. Not sure if it'll work, but they're going to try nonetheless. If they can, this team does turn into an instant contender. And last but not least, in the bad category, we got the Arizona Cardinals, a 4-13 team that's only in the bad because expectations fell. I expected them to be about an 8-7, 8-9 win team, something like that. And they looked worse, way worse than that, pulling off only 4 wins out of 17 games. And yeah, it was not a good year for them at all. But they did get a chance to fire Cliff Kingsbury, which is a good thing to come from this. Cliff Kingsbury was never going to take this team to the promised land, and that was proven whenever he was fired. And with that, let's go ahead and move on to the ugly now, where we got 3 teams. We got the Indianapolis Colts as the first one, going 4-12-1, and they were an ugly-looking train wreck without a quarterback. I mean, you brought in Matt Ryan and you still struggled. Matt Ryan's not a great quarterback by any means, but he was a pretty solid option. And he had receivers around him, but they just did not click. Also in this category, we got the Denver Broncos, a 5-12 team, and this is pretty self-explanatory. You went 5-12 after trading for Russell Wilson. That's all I gotta say. That is a disappointment in itself. And last but not least in the ugly category, we got the Los Angeles Rams, which went from a top 5 team and winning a Super Bowl to a bottom 5 team and a top 5 overall pick in one season. And you didn't lose a lot of key pieces. You didn't have OBJ, you didn't have Andrew Whitworth, and you didn't have Von Miller. But you did try to rebuild that offensive line a little bit. You had another couple of receivers try to grow into that role for OBJ. And you had Bobby Wagner come in, so you replaced what you had, and you still struggled to pull off even 5 wins. So that team was a major disappointment this year. But like I said, what did you think of this season? Who was your dark horse contender? Who was your good, bad, and ugly this year? I want to hear what you have to say, and I will get back to every single one of you guys. Also, coming up over here about now, there should be our NFL Divisional Round Power Rankings. So while you're watching our content, why not watch this one here so you can see what we think about the upcoming Divisional Round. And I guess with that, I will see you guys tomorrow for predictions. Peace out and have a good one.